Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And so we are about to start another landfill job. And in some discussion here, we're talking, we like to talk about doing repeat jobs for clients.
Stay away from Dash One.
Yeah, stay away from Dash One. We like to be deep into a relationship. It's a better position for our customer, better position for us, for sure. And so this was a long-standing relationship, and I think, did you say Dash
13?
13, yeah.
So Dash 13, which in some ways, like Scott's got a couple of clients we've been with a long time that the jobs turn over quicker. He's on Dash 80 something. But in the landfill world, Dash 13 is a lot of work at a site.
Yeah, for sure. And they're definitely our longest standing landfill client.
They're the ones that we broke into landfill with when we really we were learning our way. We didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, what the market was, who the players were. We just saw an opportunity. Ford identified it, wanted to go after it, and we went after it and won. We were low bidder on that.
Yeah. Ford, do you remember that? Do you remember the Dash 1, Dash 2? What was the feeling? What was the feeling like when you realized, hey, we just won this job and we're about to do something that we've never done before?
The work wasn't concerning. It was the people that we were going to be working with. They tried breaking us in a particular way that we were not used to. But over time, we got to resolve that problem, and became our ability to work with those type of people. But it was like, oh my goodness, what is happening here? And it was actually fun because it was something completely different. I mean, it sounds straightforward, but there's a lot of engineering involved, and there's just a lot of players, and there's a lot of stakeholders, as they say, involved in this that you just don't see on some regular projects. Mm-hmm. So we're always like, okay, we'll figure it out. And then we got to know the lining company through it and some of the other things that helped us out going through there. So it made it I'm not sure that we definitely did not know what we were doing at that point. Some days we still, but it's just so neat to see that, it's a competitive bid, but it's still, a client that we've been able to do a lot of work for over the years.
Yeah. And I mean, Dash 1, Dash 2, one of those two, we were lower than we would have liked to have been. We went in, felt good about our number, had good margins by our argument, felt good about it, and didn't understand the market 100% and what the margins were. But we're worried we made a mistake. And, one of the things I always remember there's a few, things I remember about that. One was trying to get the paperwork in order. Once we had won, to actually try and get the paperwork, it went from being in theory to, actually trying to do it. And that was a whole learning curve and process. But number two was, you're going back a long time ago, but I remember Ford and I both reaching out to Tamara and Aaron and saying, like, hey, like, they they're both working, and saying, like, what, do you think maybe like you could like take some vacation time? And because we had there was one particular engineer who was the QC, and he's a handful, but we learned how to work with him and to and work through and what specs really meant and that sort of thing. But there was some work there with Carol and some other people where we just, anybody that we could get that we knew to get on the job to try and get it done. I think Ford, wasn't that the job we said we needed 21 people by the end of it, or we had 21 people working and we didn't have 21 people. It wasn't 21 employees.
I forget what day it was, but there's 22 people related to us working there, but I don't think they only had 17 employees at that point. So do the math somehow there.
Do the math there. Yeah. What else I remember about that, Ford? That was the job when Carol did a lot of work there, just helping us literally clean up. Like, you would have to, the spec said you couldn't have any stones bigger than 3/4 of an inch visible, and it's 3/4 of an inch stone. So you'd have to compact it, and if any little stone stuck out, it's got to go around with spray paint, circle it. So we had Carol just walking the hill, and so we tried to hire people to work with Carol to help. And Ford, do you remember there was one guy that had like just come out of the Army and boot camp and everything else, and I don't think he made it till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we tell that story a lot of times, but that was the hill.
That was the hill. She put some people to sleep on that hill, Carol. Carol's Carol, but that hill she buried a few kids. They just couldn't hack it walking around with Carol.
Yeah. Well, Carol has that reputation. I mean, I remember
That's
the
where she
first
got
time
it. I mean, that's
my
where she
sons
came. Yeah.
worked with her doing snow, and they said that she was tough to keep up with for sure. Yeah.
So, but no, it's a good site for us to work with. We're happy. We knew the job was coming. We have our feelers out and know a lot of jobs. That when they're advanced before it's ever going to be a job. We earmarked this one, wanted to win this one, and we were successful. And so we're happy. And get the guys working again at a site they know. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's good.
And the weather broke.
Yeah, it's been dry for like 3 days in a row, which is incredible. I mean, feels like
right now it's steaming. It's like literally the water's coming back out of the ground at this point.
Yeah. I think it's actually recreating clouds. So give it about 10 days and it'll just be nonstop rain again. So, but yeah, it finally feels like
it's 100 today.
Yeah, my dash said 99 when I got in the car.
I was down more towards the city, in a meeting, and it was 101 or something.
Mm-hmm. It's hot.
The girl said, "How hot is it?" I said, "It's hot."
Yeah, it's very, very hot. I was trying to remember when that first landfill job was, because I think I joined while the job was already in progress.
Yeah,
so,
I want to say that job was probably 2014.
Okay. Yeah.
2014 into 15, likely. Yeah. That's off the top of my head, but by memory, I would say that we started that job in the summer of 14. We not get completely done, and then we had to go back in spring, right?
Well,
when we were there at Christmas, because it was still trying to put we were trying to get stuff to grow, and it actually did because of the warmth coming from underneath of it. But because we had like a December 15th or December 23rd deadline, like we hit the deadline, but we were working right up till Christmas.
Some of the projects blur together for me, it would have been 2014, I think, in that window.
Okay, because
there was that one slope that wasn't supposed to be that slope, let's call it, and I remember we were working at like at the very, very end.
Yeah, it was like a keystone. We couldn't touch it until the opposite of a keystone. It was the keystone. But it was the last piece. We couldn't touch it until we were ready to close it, and so everybody was standing there. We had to work quickly, get it prepared, get it approved, and then line it and then cover it really fast.
Yeah. I came to Berg in 2015, July of 2015, I think. And I think we were still doing it. So is it possible you started spring of 15?
It could have been 1 or 2. It is possible that it was spring of 15. Yeah.
And we finished December.
The other one
15,
could have been 14.
Yeah,
right?
It could have been 1 could have been 14 and then 2 was 15.
Okay.
That's probably
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Because at one point they were both running kind of in conjunction.
Yeah, it's honestly, it is a little bit of a blur. I don't even necessarily remember which was 1 and which was 4. Do you remember which was 1 and which was 2? Did we move the dirt first?
Oh yeah, the highway, Ed's Highway was first.
Ed's Highway was first. Yeah, which is still very operational, solid road. I mean, they've moved 1 million yards on that road. We only needed to move 100.
Right.
It's a great road.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a great road. So.
Construction interest 15 years later, 10 years later.
Yeah.
10 years
I mean, it was a construction interest. They rebuilt the highway. DOT had to rebuild the highway before they had to rebuild that.
That's pretty impressive.
Savannah might manage a project someday on that road.
That's awesome.
But no, it's a good site. It's a great job doing what we like to do. It's another cap, good size cap.
We've obviously done a lot of landfill work in between that one and this one.
Yeah.
And what I joining Berg in 2015. That felt like the job that started to sort of change the trajectory of who we were, the type of work that we sought out. It felt like it forward. Maybe you, I don't know, could comment on this, but it felt like it started to shift more away from like Ford and his friends group to having to grow into you said we went from we were supposed to have 21 people there. We had 17 employees. We felt like we really grew in that period of time, and it set us up for the projects that we kind of started to do next.
Yeah, I think it really started in 12 with the snow season, and then the big, just, when they have names, that there's not many of them because you memorialize them a little bit more. And then we went down there for Ed's Highway, and then to the capping project. That kind of all happened in a 2 to 3 year process. And then since then, there's been many more, because at that point, Gary wasn't even with us.
No.
We
had done the treatment facility as well. The treatment facility.
Yeah, we had done the treatment facility with Bear for the other landfill. So we'd kind of been like dancing around landfills, but we didn't have the quals at that point for caps and cells and stuff that we do now. But no, basically in that 3 to 5 year window, there was a group of people that came to work for us at that point. Another company had gone, closed up shop right about that point. A couple of them joined us. Some of them, there's still 1 or 2 of them left around, and then there's some more that joined us later. But there was a couple of them at that point that were interesting characters that are no longer with us, but I think they're still out there in the wild somewhere. I haven't run into them in a while. I haven't seen some of them, but there was definitely a ramp up period. It was just keep on going, keep on hitting the gas pedal for a couple of years there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a fun time, but it was also very chaotic, and that's me who likes chaos saying it was chaotic. And there's all little funny things you remember with Ford and I trying to balance, growth and managing the company and trying to win jobs, and also putting forth the right picture so that people would believe that we were qualified enough, because we went from being not qualified enough to do the work, but someone taking a chance, to being very qualified to do the work, but not necessarily having the people in place to really manage and do as much work as we could win. And one of the funny things for it is, I don't know if you remember this, but we had 2 of the caps we had were very big. We had, I think, a 26 and a 24, maybe even another 20 something right after it, just bang, 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 3. We didn't even realize caps weren't normally that big. We hadn't done enough research to really realize this is unusual. And so in a matter of, 18 to 24 months, we went from having to convince people to trust us to being able to say we had moved as much trash as in the last 3 to 5 years as people had been in the business for 20 years, as much cap. It was all of a sudden we had all this experience, and Gary came in the middle of that to enable us to have the management experience. And so it was exciting, but we were also trying to run the company. And whenever we were shorthanded, Ford would jump in a machine, which is good, because Ford's a capable operator. I'm not really a capable operator in the way that you would need me to be. And I think it's -2 Ford is the one where it was all hands on deck, and Ford said, get down here and you're gonna have to help. And I got there and I said, okay, well, I can run Traco. And I was probably Ford. Somebody said, okay, well, you're going to run Dozer. And I was like, all right. And they put me on the 6. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, just let's keep me away from liner, because, I don't really run Dozer. And they're like, okay, we just want you to build the road. And I was like, but the road is on the liner. And so I was pushing it out, and Greg was at the top of the hill just laughing. And he would, we didn't have radios, I think. He would call me on the phone and say, you can't grade that way. You've got to, and he's trying to, every once in a while he would try and help me, in this whatever, couple days that I was doing this, just call me and say hey, do this. But it's you could explain to me how to play lacrosse, or, what I mean? That's not going to make me be able to play lacrosse today. You know what I mean? I'm not going to
make it effective necessarily.
Yeah, you can show me how to throw a professional slider, but it doesn't mean I'm going to throw it today.
Yeah.
And so that's something I remember from that period is, we were, and that's where we were as a company, that none of us, there was no sense of pride in terms of being too proud to do something. It was just, you were going to do whatever was necessary to get done. And I think that's really, one of the cores that built up, during that same period, was that everybody knew that Ford would do whatever it took. If Ford was the trench digger, he was the trench digger. If Ford was the dozer, the hoe, the sales guy, going to, go convince the banks to trust us, whatever it was, Ford was going to do it. And I think that went a long way to transferring what we were, in that 08 to 10 window when I met Ford, to what we were by 2014, 2015, which was a company that everybody else started to notice and say, these guys are actually doing a lot of work. We started to make people nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was before technology too, because I was just thinking about we were doing that cut on the other side on -1, and we were God bless us, we were trying to transfer sticks for what was it, like a 20-foot
Yeah,
cut,
like 20 foot. Yeah.
and we had those little like hills up because they're trying to save stakes. Like it was the dumbest thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
Like I drive through there and we're like trying to like offset stakes. It'd been cheaper to pay, but that was before we had GPS or anything. We're trying to spend 6 hours transferring a stake height that really didn't matter at all.
Yeah, and Greg came in at the tail end of that. Like at some point in the grading, after we were, the base earthwork was done, liner was down. Greg got there, or he either got there, or all of a sudden we realized how good he was. But I feel like he got there because I think that Steve Keach knew that just the way things were working and how another company was spinning down, when Greg would come available. And I think Greg and Ed were two of the last people to leave the other company. And Greg got there. You remember Greg? We found him walking around with a paint can, and he was trying to get things to a 10th, like he was building the road. But the spec wasn't a 10th, so we had to say, like, Greg, you don't have to be that close. Like, that's not where we are. Was that -2, or was that the next landfill? Ford, do you remember?
No, that was there because...
Right, because Ed built the road.
That was also when we were doing. Well, that was also when we were trying to rip trash and trying to get. They had it snookered into thinking we had to be close with that.
Yeah,
too.
we had to be close with the trash, which you can't.
Right. Yeah.
But that was, that was. We've become. We have a lot of experience working with that.
That was the sending the rookie out to get the elbow grease. That's the kind of same thing happened.
Yeah, that happened a bunch on that job. But if that doesn't happen, and if Ford's not willing to take the risk and take our lumps, we're not where we are today. Because that is what changed us. Was the ability to go after that kind of work, and then the size of it, the amount of equipment you would need, all those things. It just changed.
Yeah, for sure. And
we had Ron loading rock trucks with a 63, probably as fast as some guys do with track code.
That's right. Do you remember that
thing was just whipping in circles?
I met Ron like in the parking lot of Sonic over there in on the Elverson side.
Yeah.
After work, he said, "I can meet you at this time." I said, "Okay, I'll meet you at this spot." And we met, and I said, "Okay." It was I talked to him. I said, "Yeah, I think I'd like to bring you on. Can you do a field test?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Where?" I said, "Well, we got a job. You can do a field test down there if you're able to do it tomorrow morning." He said, "Yeah, I'm not working tomorrow, so that's fine." It was probably a Saturday. So we got down there, did a field test for like 20 minutes, and I was like, we were really happy. And he said, "Well, so what do you want me to do?" I was like, "Well, you're already here. If you want to run, you can run the whole day." And he ran the whole day. His field test was about 10 hours that day. I mean, he got paid for it.
Yeah, right.
He got paid for it, but yeah, Ron.
He was on the clock, but
he was on the clock. But
he rolled right into it.
Ran the tracks off that 63 for the next however many months as we loaded with that. And that's it was a fun time. It was a fun time. We had to figure out how to grow from Ford's friends to hire operators with experience, but also with baggage and history and emotions we weren't used to dealing with, and a lot of other things, and figure that out. So it was, but it's how we got here, and now we're back.
Yeah, back for the 13th time.
13th time.
Yeah, which is cool, for sure.
And that does say a lot, right? Because that means. It means somebody's willing to work with you. 13, you've done 12 things with them, and you haven't aggravated them to the point where they don't want to deal with you anymore.
Right, that's fair.
So that's
well, I could go back through some text messages at the time,
Well, we used to take the text messages much more seriously than we do now. Now I take as this guy.
There's been some aggravation along the way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why I said we haven't aggravated them so much.
You're right. So much that they wouldn't come back for it.
That they wouldn't deal with it.
We've aggravated them less than other people. That's all we can say.
Yeah, that's true.
Less than other people.
Sometimes that's enough.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be like the best wrong answer, right? Is that?
Well, you don't have to be the fastest guy. You just can't be the slowest.
That's perfect. So, and timing wise, it fits really nicely into our backlog, which is great for our guys, and especially as the weather starts to clear up here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's as things always go. We were successful here. I think we have 4 other landfill bids on the street, and you and I have this sort of discussion all the time, Brian. Or Tracy is especially. Tracy say, like, how are we looking? What do we need? Do we need to hire people? I said, well, we're a little bit tight right now, but where we want to be. And she was like, and I said, but, and she was like, what's the but? And I was like, well, if these other jobs go, I really don't have we don't have 2 more crews just sitting to go, but
Right.
you never know what's going to go, and you have to take the opportunities as they come. So we get to that point. The one other job will be I didn't look. I don't know what it is. Probably -5, maybe -5 or
I think
6.
so, 5 or 6.
So that's one that we'll want to do. And the 5's probably not even genuine, because now that I think about it, because it is the client, so it is probably a -5 or 6.
Yeah.
And we have 2 with them, and then 1 with another client that we've done a couple jobs with. So, we could go from being in a position where we have tremendous backlog, but we're worried about schedules falling into place, to being in a point where we're just going 100 miles an hour. We had a meeting on the call this week with Stetson, going over a commercial with all the foremen, and Brad said that we're going to go to 100% equipment usage this week. So we're going to, and that's 100% is excessive.
Right.
But when you're trying to work in weather, you're fighting, and knowing that it's hurting you because your equipment's not running.
Yeah.
And the weather stopped, and it was like somebody, we threw a switch. The work was waiting. We just needed a couple things, one being weather and and then some being permitting or paperwork. And once they went, that equipment's going to run, and it's going to run. Now we're going to see the value of taking care of our equipment, of doing our inspections, of being proactive, so the shop can fix something that's an easy fix versus a big fix.
Right.
Because everything's going to run now, and we have rentals. We're running.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buckle up.
And sometimes that's like a measurement, right? Like, I know that's something that we look at a lot, is like that equipment utilization number has got to be a certain threshold for it to make sense. So
Yeah. I mean, I wish it had happened. I wish the rain could have stopped 2 weeks sooner.
Yeah, or 4.
Yeah, or 4, but we're never started. But that's sorry, everyone. You can info@berg.com if you want to comment on Dan's dislike of rain.
Yeah. It's not an environmental statement.
It's not.
It's mostly a statement about whether or not we can.
If I could have just enough that I don't have to run the water truck, but not enough that there's mud, that would be ideal. If someone could organize that for me.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
A little morning dew, just enough to cut the dust down and get out of the way.
Yeah. Just a late afternoon, just quick blow through. It's not hard, a little sprinkle, just get all the dust down, a little bit in the morning, residual. Mm-hmm. We're good.
Yeah, if maybe like in the evenings too.
Yeah.
Right, so it doesn't impact what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't want it to impact the guys with their kids and having fun either. I mean, if it could rain like
9 p.m. to 11.
9 to 11,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That'd be great.
Perfect.
Just a nice light rain, 9 to 11 every day would be great.
Yeah. Keep everything green. Keep the dust down.
Yeah.
Perfect. I like that.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to happen.
If we could schedule it, but then it'd be whatever that movie is, where like everything's on the schedule, and like everything's predictable.
Is that the
Truman Show?
The Truman Show.
Yeah, that one.
That's good work for it. That
was a good pull there. I knew I could see it.
I knew it was Jim Carrey. I couldn't remember.
I just couldn't see the name of it. Yeah, for sure. So that's exciting. New job starting for I don't want to say old customer, but new job starting for an old customer, and lots of backlog surrounding it to support that, and clear weather for the moment.
You know what, too, Brian? I don't want to drag it out, but I didn't even think about this so right this minute. But we're talking landfill, so it's kind of a one-sided thing. But I mentioned special projects. Yeah. And special projects started, I think, they're on a -3 and 4 to a client that we really wanted to, we eagerly pursued because of the nature of the work they do in the special projects world.
Right.
But their other client. I mean, the other day I think they might be on -90, 89. They're almost to 90.
No, they're in the 90s for sure. I think we're at 96.
I almost feel like when we hit 100 there, we should do something. I mean, that's 100 jobs for somebody.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't know how many back in the day, Ford, you would have done for John when you started this all that time ago.
We're in the 40s. We were in the 40s or something, I think, the last time I checked.
I mean, so knowing 40, that becomes a goal for me on the other side, because the new client, that's somebody that to get to 40 with that, it's going to take you 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you 20 years.
It takes some legacy there.
It takes some legacy. Right, but to hit 100, that's saying something. You know what I mean?
He's closing in fast. I mean, it's probably happening.
It's going to happen this summer,
right?
Yeah,
so
probably going to do something. Maybe have Scott on when we get 100. That'll be have Scott as a guest in. Scott can talk about.
He'll be like, I'm too busy, guys. I'm on job number 101. I don't have time to talk about this.
Yeah, that's Scott. He did that to me the other day. We're going to go tour one of the jobs as a group. And he said that to me. I was like, well, we could grab lunch or something. He was like, I don't have time for that. Like, if it's okay, we'll just go see the job. I got a lot of loose ends I need to tie up.
Yeah. So, so, well, good. So that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Exciting stuff going on. And folks, we hope you got something from this episode. And we hope you come back for another one.